Hello, how are you? On behalf of Clean Code, welcome to Block Interview Question in Python. Employees with the same birth month. I hope you're well rested and ready to go because today we are going to be tackling a hard problem. Okay, our problem statement reads, identify the number of employees within each department that share the same birth month. Your output should list the department, birth month, and the number of employees from that department who were born in that month. If a month has no employees born within a specific department, report this month as having 0 employees. The profession column stores the department names of each employee. So a pretty involved question. However, I think once we kind of get up and over the lot of moving parts that this question is asking us to do, it's going to become pretty clear what we're trying to have happen. Examining our data frame, we get first name, last name, profession, which is department, but called profession, employee ID, birthday, and birth month. Coming over and just looking at our data, we see, okay, everything is looking pretty nice. The birthday is in date time format, but our birth month has already been extracted. And this is why I think, this birth month column is why I think that this problem is probably sitting in a 5-interview stretch at number 3 or 4. I think what Block is trying to do here is you've already done 3 problems. You got 15 minutes left. You need to solve 2 more of these problems in your on-site interview. And then they're going to throw this one at you. And there's a lot of moving parts. And if you can calm down, take a deep breath and look, there's actually a very straightforward solution and ability to solve this problem. I think this is a can you pick your head up and see what's going on kind of a thing. All right. That being said, let's jump over to our notebook and begin to break this problem down. Okay, here we are in our notebook. Let's go ahead and just highlight our key problem statements. So we need a number of employees, each department, same birth month. And then it specifically gives us an output. So we're going to specifically highlight. We want it to look like this. Now, normally, these are very similar, but they specifically say it, so we're going to specifically identify it. And then we have a problem consideration, or we're going to report this as having 0 employees if no employees are born within a specific department. So all of this is just to help us kind of understand what's going on in our problem statement. So now that we have an understanding, if we look down at our data, we can see, hey, we don't need to worry about first name. We don't need to worry about last name. Employee ID is coming from the SQL. It's a foreign key. We just need to worry about profession, birthday, and birth month. And I would argue we don't really even need birthday because we already have birth month. So now we only need, instead of the 6 columns, we just need 2. And in my mind, this is a big help when you can break it down and see, okay, great. We don't need all of these columns. I only need to worry about 2 columns. This is a 2-column problem. Now suddenly things are looking a lot simpler. Okay, let's go ahead now and kind of sort out our problem plan so that when we go to kind of figure out what kind of helper functions we want to do, it just makes it a little bit easier. And to help us do this, let's just draw a diagram here. So if we draw out our big block of data, fundamentally what we are trying to do is, when we look at our problem statement, we want to identify the number of employees within each department with the same birth month. So the first kind of partition we need to make is by department. And then within department, we need to say, hey, birth months. And then what we want to do is we want to count everything up. We want to sum all of these. So when we think about how we want to step through this problem, 1, we want to organize by department. 2, calculate birth months. We already have the birth month column, so we don't need to make the step of extracting that. And 3, we need to aggregate this all together. And 4 would be our solution. So when I think about this task, what's coming to my mind is I think we can make use of some pretty cool Pandas abilities, specifically group by, right? Group by is going to handle that organization step that we need to do in the beginning. I also think we can use aggregate. That's a function that's in Pandas milling around. I also think we're going to want to use a reset index, because what we're going to be doing is chopping and changing inside of our data frame, but we want to keep resetting the index so it doesn't start mutating and doing some magic method madness. I also think we could use a pivot table. Now, this is a bit of a outside of the box kind of solution for the pivot table, but I think the pivot table is going to be able to handle all of the kind of compilation that we want to do in order to solve this problem. So we have our problem plan, we have an idea of what we're trying to do. Let's go ahead and jump back into the code editor and write up some code. Okay, here we are in the code editor, and let's go ahead and we're going to make a new data frame, and this is when we're going to do that group by. We're going to group by birth month, and we're going to aggregate by a birth month count. And how we're going to utilize that is by utilizing this aggregation index we have here. And then now that we have the employees and it's all grouped by profession and then birth month, and then we counted the birth months together by profession, I think we need to have a second data frame that's going to showcase our solution. And I think we're going to use that pivot table on this first data frame here. And then the index will be profession, the columns will be birth months, and then the values will be birth month count. And then anything that doesn't have a value, we're going to fill with 0, because that is this condition here in our problem statement. We're also going to reset the index so we don't have any issues with how things turn out in terms of the visual output. So we go ahead and click run code, nice and fast. This looks good, right? Counting, we do have counts, we do have zeros, it's looking nice. And if we go ahead and check and see if we solved it, all green lines, everything's looking nice. All right, on behalf of Clean Code, this has been Block Employees with the Same Birth Month, a hard interview question for the aspiring data analyst or scientist. Stick around for after hours and we'll give a more in-depth breakdown of what's going on in this particular code. Otherwise, I'll see you next time. All right, welcome to After Hours, where we are going to go through this code in a little bit more depth and hopefully make sure everyone's cool and understanding of what's going on. So in this first data frame we have here called df employee, there's only 3 functions being used. We have a group by, we have an aggregation, and then we have the reset index. Now what the group by is doing is saying, hey, I want things to be grouped by profession, and then as a subgrouping inside of profession, I want things grouped by birth month. So this is what's executed. On top of that, we're chaining together this aggregation, and we're going to make a variable called birth month count, and we're going to say, hey, I want the birth month, and then I want the count of the birth month. This can be changed to like average or whatever you want it to be. We just want to count. Reset index is just here so that as we are using the employee list group by, it resets the index based on everything that's happened here. So it rewrites the data frame based on this new indexing, and then we store it all in this df employee here. Then for df solution, we're calling our df employee, which is right here, which we've already just talked about. We're going to use the pivot table function to categorize and organize our data. And we're saying, hey, we want the index to be profession, so index on profession. I want the columns to be birth months, and please make the values to be birth month count. Fill value just says, hey, and if there isn't a value already, make it 0, and then reset the index so that this pivot table statement is the correct ordering of our data frame. Not horribly complicated. If you've never seen like the pivot table function before, I highly recommend you take a look at it in the Pandas documentation. Super useful for when you need to kind of create an Excel-like table in code. Otherwise, on behalf of Clean Code, I will see you next time.